Of the 3 islands in the Marianas designated for landings by United States forces, Tinian was the smallest in size. Separated by a narrow channel from Saipan, Tinian lies almost directly south of Saipan and north of Guam. During the attack on Saipan, the island of Tinian was closely observed and studied. 1 battalion of Corps artillery had the mission of neutralizing Tinian airfield and destroying located targets. Daily plane strikes and naval gunfire bombardments were executed on Tinian. Frequent photo coverage flights were flown. Valuable intelligence data of Tinian was captured on Saipan. When the capture of Saipan neared its final stage, there was considerable information available pertaining to Tinian and enemy units thereon. About 2 miles northwest of Fabius and Hilo Point are beaches White 1 and 2. They are about 150 yards wide with the usable width of about 60 yards. Usable length about 120 yards. This entire section is fringed by a reef 50 to 100 yards wide and is generally free of surfs. Late observation reports showed that there were no underwater obstacles with the exception of a few holes and small boulders. While no type of craft can actually be landed on the beach itself, it was believed that LCVPs and LCPIs could land men within 50 yards of the shoreline. Waterproof field vehicles, tanks, and LVTs, it was believed, could be landed on the smooth part of the reef in front of both beaches. Shoreline for 100 yards south of beaches White 1 and 2 consists of rough, rocky cliffs, ranging from 6 to 10 feet in height, and which would be difficult to scale without ladders or cargo nets. The bottom of the cliffs is undercut by the action of the sea, while the face of the cliffs is rough and sharp. There appeared to be only a few breaks in the cliffs, and these breaks would permit men to proceed inland in single file only. All of the arable land on Tinian is cultivated for sugarcane. This amounts to approximately 90% of the total area of the island. Principal towns are Tinian Town, situated on Tinian Harbor, and 2 small villages around Yushi Point Airfield. A well-developed rectangular road system connects Tinian Town with Yushi Point Airfield. The primary roads are hard-surfaced, being constructed of coral and are approximately 18 feet wide. They roughly circle the island. Secondary dirt roads serving the cane fields lead to the primary roads. Paths and trails probably follow most of the head roads dividing the cane fields. A lighthouse is located on the southwest shore about 1/2 mile south of Tinian Town. A narrow-gauge 30-inch railway connects the airfields with Tinian Town. The 2 piers at Tinian Harbor can accommodate only small craft. It was apparent from captured operations orders, battle plans, and field interrogations that the enemy had not given serious consideration to the possibility of our landing on the northwest coast, white beaches of the island, and it was clear that our landings there could be achieved with complete tactical surprise. It was believed that the enemy forces and strength, troop dispositions, and planned scheme of maneuver against landings on Tinian on Jig Day was as follows. Northern Sector Force. Its sector embraced the northern tip of the island, the Yushi Point Airfield, known as Airfield 1, and the Osega Bay area. Southern Sector Force. Its sector of defense embraced the area roughly south of Mount Lasso, including Airfield 2, the Tinian Harbor area, and the southern part of the island. Western Sector Force. Its sector embraces the northwestern section of the island and included the white beaches. The artillery battalion attached to the 50th Infantry Regiment had 12 75mm guns and consisted of 3 batteries. One battery was to be in the Tinian harbor area, one battery in the Asiga harbor area, and one platoon in the White Beaches area. The reserve consisted of 1 battalion, less 1 company, and 1 anti-tank gun squad, and its disposition was believed to be in the Mount Lasso area. Mobile counterattack force, naval and aircraft forces, headquarters units. These forces totaled 8,900 men and were commanded by the commanding officer of the 50th Infantry Regiment, Colonel Ogota, as Tinian Island's commander. Enemy's scheme of maneuver. Each sector force, northern, southern, and western, would be prepared to destroy the enemy at the beach, but also be prepared to shift 2/3 of the force elsewhere. Northern troops and landing force, Task Group 56.1, in conjunction with Northern Attack Force, Task Group 52, was given the following mission. On Jig Day, land, seize, occupy, and defend Tinian Island in order to obtain the use of that island and destroy the enemy thereon. All troops involved in the Tinian operation were commanded by Major General Harry Schmidt, United States Marine Corps, Commanding General, Northern Troops and Landing Force. Organization. Corps Troops, detachment of the 5th Fib Corps Headquarters Troops. 4th Marine Division, reinforced. 2nd Marine Division, reinforced. 27th Infantry Division, reinforced. 24th Corps Artillery and Garrison Forces. Task assignment. The 4th Marine Division reinforced to land at Howe Hour Jig Day, 2 regiments abreast on beaches White 1 and 2, seize Objective 01, then on division order, make main effort in direction of Mount Lasso and seize the FBL. The 2nd Marine Division, reinforced, land on order in rear of 4th Marine Division, reinforced, on beaches White 1 and 2, move to assembly positions to be designated, prepare for offensive operations on order. The 27th Infantry Division, reinforced, less 105th Infantry and Division Artillery, be prepared to embark in landing craft on 4 hours' notice and land on order on beaches to be designated. 24th Corps Artillery, in general support the landing on beaches White 1 and 2, and subsequent operations from initial position at the southern portion of Saipan. Massed fires to be in support of assault units. Coordinate naval gunfire and air support with artillery fire. Garrison forces initiate anti-aircraft defenses and airfield repairs and execute base development missions. Demonstrations groups be on station at sunrise, Jig Day, in vicinity of Transport Area 2, execute diversionary feint at landing on Blue Beach at Howe Hour in order to deceive the enemy regarding the primary point of attack and to immobilize its reserves. Keep ships outside effective range of enemy shore battery, but send boats in as close to reef as tactical conditions would permit. At 1000, return to Transport Area 3 and report to Commander, Transport Group. Direct control vessels report to Screen Commander for duty. Direct LCIs report to CTU 52.2.3. Naval Gunfire Support Mission. Prior to Jig -1 day, destruction, harassing, interdiction, and neutralization fire to be executed over a continuing period of time in such density as will be permitted by the ammunition available. Jig -1 day, counter battery fire, area bombardment, and interdiction fire commencing at daybreak and continuing throughout the day with a mission to destroy remaining enemy installations, to destroy or prevent occupation of caves, and to break up enemy troop concentrations. Close supporting fire will be provided to cover beach reconnaissance by the underwater demolition teams and operations of the mine-sweeping groups off Tinian town. All avenues of approach leading from south to north will be interdicted to prevent any enemy movement into the landing area. Jig Day counter-battery fire commencing near dawn and intensive destructive fire, including close-range battleship and heavy cruiser main battery fire, on beach defenses and installations until lifted by order. Supporting fires will be furnished in the vicinity of Sanharan Harbor to cover the demonstration. The leveling of Tinian town will be completed. Interdiction fire will be delivered on roads and trails south of the FBL to prevent the movement of enemy reserves from the southern part of the island north past the FBL. Call fires on targets of opportunity controlled by shore fire control parties after they have landed. Aircraft support mission. Aircraft of Task Force 52 will provide air support for the capture of Tinian. Aircraft of Task Force 59.1 based on Saipan, as directed by Commander's support aircraft, will be utilized in support of the Tinian operation insofar as is tactically practicable, consistent with their main primary mission. Propaganda leaflets ordered dropped on Tinian prior to Jig Day. Strikes on Tinian prior to Jig -1 day will be made as directed by CTF 52. Since no specific plan can be made for air support acquired after Jig +2 days, air support will be requested on the afternoon of the day previous. Special shore-to-shore instructions were designed to prescribe a means of establishing 2 divisions ashore on Tinian by an assault in column of divisions on a restricted 3-battalion front. The order: 4th Marine Division, 2nd Marine Division. The following priority was established. Priority 1, 4th Marine Division combat elements. Priority 2, supplies by LVTs and ducks. Priority 3, completion of movement of 4th Marine Division equipment and the beginning of lifting of 2nd Marine Division. Priority 4, movement of the 2nd Marine Division. The 2nd Marine Division was to commence loading on 21 July from the seaplane ramp in Saipan's Tanapag Harbor. Troops were to be loaded into LCIs for transfer to transports. The 4th Marine Division was to begin embarkation on LST 23 July, using LVTs to transfer from yellow and red beaches on Saipan to the LST. The principal base for supplies was to be Saipan, augmented by shipping and transport areas available and appropriate. For the assault, prescribed items on the person and in manned vehicles. Narrow beaches dictated at all follow-up supplies were to cross the beach, mobile loaded direct to dumps or units. Supply plans were based upon the prompt installation of 2 prefabricated pontoon crossways and delivery across them of loaded trucks ferried from Saipan via LSTs, LCTs, and LCMs, and also for delivery of supplies from LSTs direct to beach dumps via LVTs and ducks. The big unknown was the weather. Careful check was kept on this by Simpac's Weather Central and by local aerologists. Commander Task Force 51 directed patrol planes searching from westward to take special weather observation with a view of detecting indications of disturbance, and particularly to detect any large swells which might be moving from the southwestward. A reasonable assurance of 3 days good weather was considered essential before the initiation of assault operation. Plans were prepared to cover the contingency of bad weather after the landing. Jig Day was the day on which initial landings were to be made on Tinian, and tentatively set on 24 July 1944 east longitude date. Howe hour was the hour of the principal landings on Tinian and was 0730 jig day. On the nights of 10, 11, and 11-12 July, the 5th Fib Corps Reconnaissance Battalion conducted reconnaissance of yellow and white beaches on Tinian. LCRs launched from APDs approached to within 400 yards of the beaches, from where scouts swam the remaining distance and accomplished their mission without casualty or detection. Long-range bombardment of Tinian from Saipan began to reach a climax on jig -9. Units of northern troops and landing force embarked from Saipan beaches, commencing on jig -3 days, 21 July. The following shipping and landing crafts were available for the operation: 9 APAs, 2 LSVs, 37 LSTs, 31 LCIs, 20 LCTs, 130 ducks, 195 LCMs, 9 pontoon barges, 527 LVTs, of which 459 LVTs were cargo and 68 LVTs were armored. The 2nd Marine Division embarked 2 regiments in APAs and 1 regiment remained on Saipan. The LSTs were all top-deck preloaded with supplies. No supplies were carried that could not roll across the beach in ducks or LVTs to inland dumps. The 4th Marine Division was embarked in LSTs. From jig -3 to jig day, Corps artillery fired more than 324 missions. During the night of 23 July, jig -1, underwater demolition teams conducted reconnaissance of beaches White 1 and 2, and also the beaches of Tinian Town. Results of the reconnaissance on beaches off Tinian Town were negative. On beaches White 1 and 2, some mines were found on the reef. It was not possible to remove these mines entirely prior to landing. On the morning of jig day 24 July 1944, the weather was fair. Visibility generally 15 miles, slight sea swell from the northeast, wind south, average 15 knots. The tactical groups arrived in their assigned areas off the beaches at 0600 and immediately began launching LVTs. At the same time, a sweep for mines off white beaches was begun and completed as scheduled. LSTs Ashland and Belgrove arrived in the area at 0600 and commenced launching LCMs with tanks. Control vessels took their assigned stations. The concentration of explosives in the beach area immediately preceding the landing was very heavy. Supporting the assault waves and firing in the vicinity of the landing beaches were 96 105mm howitzers, 36 155mm howitzers, and 24 155mm guns. 2 battleships, 1 heavy cruiser, and 4 destroyers delivered fire and supported the landing, lying to in assigned stations close to the beaches and the boat lanes. At 0730, because of a delay in formation of initial assault waves, CTF 52 announced a delay at Howe hour of 10 minutes. New Howe hour, 0740. The first wave was dispatched at 0717. Subsequent waves were dispatched on time to meet the new Howe hour. 30 LCIs supported the landing with rocket and 40mm gunfire. Part of the LCIs led the LVT assault waves to the beach. The remaining LCIs moved toward the beaches outside the boat lanes and delivered close support fire on the flanks. In this operation, LCI 460 was hit by enemy gunfire, which wounded 2 enlisted men seriously. No other supporting ship was hit. Sporadic enemy gunfire in the boat lanes was ineffective. The strong tidal current setting northward across the boat lanes made it difficult for the initial LVT waves to maintain the proper direction. The first wave landed on Beach White 1 at 0742. On Beach White 2 at 0750. The assault regiment on Beach White 1 landed in column of battalions. On Beach White 2, 2 battalions abreast. It was known in advance there were anti-boat mines on Beach White 2. For these reasons, troops were instructed to disembark from LVTs at the water's edge, making their way inland between boulders. LVTs were instructed not to land until the beaches had been cleared of mines. In spite of these precautions, 2 LVTs were blown up by mines on Beach White 2 on Jig Day. Engineers removed 15 anti-boat mines from this beach, all buried between high and low water marks. At the same time, a demonstration was being executed off Tinian town. A simultaneous landing wave circled as though in preparation for coming ashore. This demonstration encountered heavy enemy fire, which damaged 1 battleship and 1 cruiser. Our vessels continued this feint until 1000 and then withdrew. On beaches White 1 and 2, only slight resistance was met by troops of the 4th Division. Such rapid advancement was made that by 1200, the reserve regiment of the 4th Division commenced landing. After clearing the reef and landing beaches of mines, 2 companies of tanks came ashore. It was then 1600. 2 hours later, the first elements of the 2nd Marine Division commenced landing. Day's end found us with essential toehold secured on Tinian Island. Plans for improving the beaches were put into effect without delay. 2 LCTs had been preloaded with bulldozers, tractors, and other shore party equipment. This equipment was landed early in the afternoon of Jig Day and set to work at once clearing road exits and improving beaches. The 2 pontoon causeway piers previously made ready were towed from Saipan and arrived prior to dawn. It was realized that maximum advantage had to be taken of the good weather and favorable sea conditions then obtained, since even a moderate swell would interfere seriously with unloading on the exposed beaches. Maximum effort was made to prepare the beaches for earliest possible landing of supplies and equipment. This procedure paid dividends later. The first night ashore, determined enemy groups armed with machine guns infiltrated marine lines and fired into rear areas at artillery and their installations. Throughout the night, severe counterattacks were experienced, supported by many tanks. As the first streaks of dawn appeared, the Jap attacks increased to maximum intensity. The morning of Jig +1 found the field strewn with enemy dead. The Japs had lost more than 500 killed and several tanks knocked out. At 0830, 3 destroyers stood offshore and began a 1 hour and 15-minute preparation bombardment for the morning attack. 1 battleship and 5 destroyers provided call fire, while beach supporting fires were provided by 2 cruisers. At 1000, troops of the 4th Division jumped off to the attack. The going was tough and in some spots slow. Chief resistance came mainly from Japs and placed in caves among the cliffs, which faced the troops on the south. On the edges of the Yushi Point airfield, the enemy stubbornly resisted. 2 regiments of the 2nd Marine Division were landed during the day. Japs continued to pound the beaches with artillery and mortar fire. This restricted the flow of supplies accordingly. All 75mm pack howitzers battalions were ashore by mid-afternoon. The orders were issued immediately to commence landing the 105mm howitzer battalions of the 14th Marines. Anxious to gain control of the Yushi Point airfield and seize the 4th beachhead line, troops attack at 0800 Jig +2 day with 2 divisions abreast. Carrier and land-based planes joined in the attack with excellent results. In addition to normal straightening and bombing missions, land-based planes dropped incendiaries, employing both napalm and gas diesel-filled belly tanks. Progress was rapid along the entire front. By 1000, the Yushi Point airfield had been captured. 2 hours later, the 03 line, the assigned objective, had been reached. The troops were then ordered to advance south at the discretion of division commander. The first 3 days of action had accomplished the following. The northern airfield on Tinian had been secured. 1/4 of the island was in American hands. Plans were made for a rapid advance that would sweep southward to the tip of the island. On JIG+3, the 2nd Marine Division, at the left of the 4th zone of action, resumed the attack. Troops met little opposition and by 0930 had secured Beach Yellow. This straightened out the line, and the 2nd Division was now abreast of the 4th Division. By 1600, Yushi Point Airfield was in operation, and an OY-1 plane had landed and taken off. The runway was being extended to 5,500 feet. Lack of strong enemy opposition permitted the 4th and 2nd Divisions to advance rapidly. By 1250 on JIG+4, both divisions had reached the 05 line and continued onward to a new objective line designated as the 05A line. At 1315, Command Post Northern Troops and Landing Force closed on Saipan and opened on Tinian. By dusk of JIG+4, the 2nd airfield, situated on the western coast, had been captured, and half the total land area of Tinian was under American domination. The next objective was the 07 line, which included Tinian town. On JIG+5 day, 29 July, troops of both divisions moved southward against heavy resistance. Slowly supported by artillery and planes, the Marines slowly forced the enemy back to its final defensive positions. On JIG+6 day, difficult sub-conditions on all landing beaches curtailed the landing of supplies except by LCMs, LVTs, and ducks. However, no critical supply shortage existed. Troops of the 4th Marine Division were advancing southward toward Tinian town. Especially strong support was rendered by B-25 planes, which dropped 1,000-pound bombs on enemy forces. By 1755, JIG+6, entire 07 line had been secured. Tinian town was ours. The enemy had been drifting back into less than 1/4 of the island with no means and no hope of escape. The next day's attack, preceded by naval bombardment and airstrikes of intensity similar to the JIG Day 3 landing preparations. All available air strength was mustered. 70 P-47s, 16 B-25s, and 24 TBFs joined in the attack. At 0830, the troops jumped off at the objective as the 08 line. The enemy had entrenched itself in strong defensive positions along the cliffs of the plateau on the southern peninsula of Tinian. They resisted strongly with rifle, machine gun, mortar, and some artillery fire. By nightfall, the enemy had the alternative of surrendering or being totally destroyed. On Jig Plus 8 Day, American troops were so close to the enemy that airstrike targets were prohibited. During the day's action, American troops seized the high plateau and final defensive positions from the few remaining Japs. By 1855, Jig Plus 8 Day, 1 August 1944, Tinian was reported secured. Rapid and successful reduction of Tinian had been completed after 9 days of fighting. From 2 August to 8 August, mopping up of small Jap units and burial of the enemy was carried out. Re-embarkation of troops from Tinian to Saipan continued. On Jig Plus 17 Day, 10 August, the Commander 5th Fleet announced the capture and occupation phase of Saipan and Tinian was completed, and that all forces on Saipan and Tinian would pass from Commander Task Group 56.1 to the respective island commander. The Tinian operation was over.